The galaxy's black markets were places no honest traveler wanted to visit. They were hidden in the shadows of broken moons and ruined space stations. Here, credits bought anything: weapons, stolen ships, forbidden technology, and even living beings. On a quiet night, a human explorer named Daniel found himself lost in one of these places. He had only wanted to refuel his small ship, but his navigation system failed. One wrong jump through the warp gates, and suddenly he was surrounded by crooked traders and criminals. He told himself he would leave as soon as possible, but curiosity pulled him deeper into the maze of tents and cages. The air smelled of metal, smoke, and fear. Lights flickered above as voices shouted prices in dozens of alien languages. Daniel walked carefully, pretending he belonged there, though his heart raced inside his chest. Then he saw it, a long row of cages covered with black cloths. Guards stood nearby, their faces hidden by masks. A sign written in several languages warned, "Special goods, do not touch without payment." The guards lifted one of the cloths when a buyer approached. Inside was a young alien girl, thin and pale, with silver-blue skin that glowed faintly under the dim lights. Her eyes were unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. They were not dull with hopelessness like the others. Instead, they were sharp, watching everything. She did not look like a slave. She looked like someone waiting, planning. Daniel shook his head and turned away. This was none of his business, but before he could leave, a loud and greedy trader stepped into his path. "You there, human?" the man barked. "Looking for company? We have the finest love slaves in this sector. Cheap today only." Daniel raised his hands quickly. "No, I'm not interested," he said, but the trader pressed a glowing tablet into his hands. "Special offer. One contract, already marked down, all yours. No questions asked." The screen flashed with alien numbers and Daniel, confused, tapped it by accident. The machine beeped and the trader grinned. "Congratulations, human. You just bought yourself a love slave." Daniel's mouth fell open. "What? No, I didn't." But the guards had already unlocked the cage. The alien girl stepped out slowly, her movements graceful yet dangerous. She looked straight into Daniel's eyes, and for a moment, he felt like she could see into his very soul. The trader pushed her toward him and laughed. "No refunds." Daniel tried to argue, but the crowd began to stare. In this place, mistakes were deadly. He knew if he caused too much trouble, he might never leave alive. So, with no other choice, he led the alien girl away, her chains dragging behind her. When they reached the shadows near his ship, Daniel spoke in a low voice. "Listen, I don't want a slave. I didn't mean to buy you." He held out the key to her restraints. "You're free. Go anywhere you want. Just leave me out of this." But the girl did not run. She looked at him with those sharp, glowing eyes and shook her head. "No," she whispered, her voice calm but filled with warning. "If I leave you, they will kill me, and then they will kill you too." Daniel froze. He thought freeing her would solve everything, but instead, her words wrapped around him like chains of their own. "Why would they kill me?" he asked, confused. The girl leaned closer, her silver blue, skin glowing brighter in the dark. "Because you touched my contract," she said. "Now you are bound to me. And I am bound to you." Her words made Daniel's stomach twist with fear. He realized this was no normal mistake. This girl was not an ordinary slave. There was something dangerous, something hidden about her. Around them, shadows moved. He noticed masked men watching from the edges of the market, their eyes locked on the girl. She noticed them too, but she did not look afraid. Instead, she smiled faintly, a smile that carried both sadness and power. Daniel suddenly understood that his life had just changed forever. He had come here by accident, only wanting fuel for his ship. But now he had bought something the galaxy wanted to keep chained. Something that could bring danger to anyone who stood near her. The girl stepped closer to him and whispered again, "You cannot let me go, human." Her voice was soft, yet it carried the weight of a promise. "Because from this moment, I will never let you go." And in that instant, Daniel knew the real story was only beginning. Daniel's ship lifted off from the black market station with shaking engines. He kept looking over his shoulder, afraid someone would follow. The alien girl sat silently in the passenger seat, her hands still chained though he had unlocked them. She made no move to escape, no move to attack. She only stared out into the endless stars. For the first time, Daniel could see her clearly. Her silver blue skin glowed softly like moonlight. Her long hair shimmered with tiny sparks of light as if stars were trapped inside each strand. But it was her eyes that troubled him most. Sharp, bright, too clever. They did not belong to someone broken. They belonged to someone waiting, watching, planning. Finally, Daniel spoke, trying to sound firm. "I told you. I didn't mean to buy you," he said. "You're free now. I don't want a slave." He pointed to the door hatch. "As soon as we land somewhere safe, you can go your own way." The girl turned to him slowly, and for the first time, she spoke more than a whisper. "You don't understand, human," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "I cannot leave you and you cannot leave me." Daniel frowned. "That makes no sense. I'm not your owner and you're not my—" She cut him off with a cold laugh, not cruel but sad. "They will come for me. When they do, you will be the first they destroy." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "Who will come?" The girl leaned forward, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "The hunters," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper again. "The ones who sold me. The ones who fear me, the ones who know what I really am." Daniel swallowed hard. "What are you?" he asked. For a moment, silence filled the ship. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Then the girl lifted her hands, showing him the metal cuffs. They weren't ordinary shackles. Strange alien symbols glowed faintly along their edges. "These chains," she said softly, "are not to bind my body. They are to bind my power." Daniel's breath caught. "Power? What kind of power?" She looked away, as if deciding whether to trust him. "You saw the sign above the cages, didn't you?" she asked. "Special goods. Do you know what that means?" Daniel shook his head. The girl's eyes grew darker, more serious. "It means dangerous, forbidden, too valuable to live free," she said. "They called me a slave, but I was never meant for pleasure. I was meant to be controlled, used, and kept hidden." Daniel tried to process her words. "So, you're not what they said you were." The girl tilted her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. "Does it look like I am?" she asked, her voice bitter. "Would a broken slave look you in the eye like this?" Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "No," he admitted. The girl leaned closer, her chains clinking softly. "Then listen carefully, human," she said. "If you keep me, the hunters will never stop chasing you. If you abandon me, they will kill you to erase the mistake. If you sell me back, they will take me, and you will never sleep safely again." Daniel's hands tightened on the controls. "So you're saying I'm trapped?" Her sharp eyes softened for just a moment. "You are bound now," she said quietly. "Bound to my fate." The words struck Daniel harder than any weapon could. He realized he had walked into something far bigger than a simple mistake. He had bought trouble that could destroy him. But when he looked at her again, something inside him shifted. There was sadness in her gaze, and loneliness. She wasn't just dangerous, she was desperate. Before he could respond, the ship's alarm blared, a red light flashed on the console. Daniel cursed and checked the radar. 3 ships had appeared behind them, fast and closing in. The girl didn't even flinch. "They are here," she said simply. "The hunters." Daniel's stomach dropped. He had expected time. Hours. Days, maybe. But they had found him already. He pushed the engines to full power. The ship shook violently as it leapt forward, stars stretching into streaks of light. The hunters followed, their weapons powering up. "Why are they after you?" Daniel shouted over the alarms. "What are you to them?" The girl's voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "I am their greatest mistake," she said. The one thing they could never control. Daniel's blood ran cold. He wanted answers, but there was no time. The hunters fired. Beams of light cutting. Across the stars, explosions rocked the ship, warning lights flaring. The girl reached out suddenly, grabbing his arm. Her hand was warm, her grip firm. "Do not fear," she said, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "As long as I am with you, they cannot take you." Daniel didn't know whether to believe her, but in her gaze there was no fear, only certainty. And for the first time he wondered if maybe she wasn't the one who needed saving. Maybe it was him. As the hunters closed in, the girl whispered words he didn't understand. The symbols on her chains flickered, glowing faintly as if trying to awaken. And Daniel realized with a shiver that whatever secret she carried, it was about to change everything. The stars outside Daniel's ship blurred as he pushed the engines to their limit. The control panel screamed with warning lights, but the hunters did not fall behind. 3 sleek black ships cut through the void like predators chasing prey. Every second they grew closer, their weapons glowing with deadly fire. Daniel gritted his teeth and pulled the ship into a sharp dive. Laser beams sliced across the hull, shaking the vessel. Inside, sparks flew, and alarms wailed. "This ship can't take much more," Daniel shouted, his voice breaking. The alien girl sat calmly in the co-pilot's seat, her glowing eyes fixed on the hunters. She seemed untouched by the chaos, as if she had seen all of this before. Daniel spun to her, desperate. "Who are they? Why are they after you? What do they want?" Her voice was steady, almost too calm. "They are hunters from the black market, servants of the lords who rule the trade. They want me back because I am their property, and because if I remain free, I will ruin them all." Daniel's chest tightened. Her words carried the weight of something bigger, darker. He wanted to ask more, but the ship jolted violently, a direct hit slamming into the rear engines. Smoke filled the cabin. The girl did not panic, she only whispered, "They are impatient. They want to end this quickly." Daniel's eyes darted across the controls, searching for options. His fuel was running low, shields failing, weapons useless. Then his eyes caught something. A nearby mining field drifting between broken asteroids. If he flew into it, the hunters would have trouble following. But it was a graveyard of rocks and sharp debris. One wrong turn and the ship would be crushed. "It's suicide," Daniel muttered. But the girl leaned closer, her chains clinking, softly. "Trust me," she said. Her voice was so calm, so sure, it cut through his fear. Daniel swallowed hard, pulled the controls, and plunged into the asteroid field. The ship weaved between spinning rocks, engines screaming. The hunters followed, firing blindly. Explosions flashed against the massive stones, the shock waves rattling. Daniel's bones, for a moment, it seemed they had escaped. Then the radar lit up with a warning. More ships waiting ahead. The hunters had set a trap. Daniel's heart sank. He slammed a fist against the console. "We're finished." But the girl's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter in the shadows. "No," she said firmly. "This is only the beginning." She pressed her chained hands together, whispering in a language Daniel did not understand. The symbols on her cuffs pulsed, faint at first, then stronger. The air inside the ship grew heavy, filled with strange energy. Daniel's hair stood on end, his skin prickled. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, the asteroids around them shifted. Instead of floating aimlessly, they began to move as if pulled by invisible strings. The massive stones spun faster, colliding into the hunter's path. One ship exploded instantly, torn apart by the impact. Another swerved too late and was crushed between 2 giant rocks. Daniel stared in shock. "Did you do that?" he asked, his voice trembling. The girl opened her eyes, which now glowed like burning stars. "I warned you," she said softly. "I am not what they told you I was. I am their secret, their weapon, their greatest mistake." The last hunter ship veered away, fleeing the chaos. The asteroid field returned to silence. Daniel's ship floated through the wreckage, damaged but still alive. He let out a shaky breath, hands trembling on the controls. "What are you?" he whispered, almost afraid of the answer. The girl leaned back, her chains still glowing faintly. You will learn soon, she said. But not here. Daniel wanted to press her, but his console beeped again. This time it wasn't a warning. It was a signal, a broadcast flashing across the galaxy's networks. He pulled it up on the screen, his stomach sinking as the words appeared. Wanted, runaway asset. Silver-skinned female. Last seen with human male. Reward, 500,000 credits, dead or alive. Daniel's heart stopped. There was even an image of his own face next to hers. He was no longer just a man who made a mistake. He was now branded as her partner, her accomplice, every mercenary, every bounty hunter, every desperate soul in the galaxy would soon be hunting him. He turned to the girl, anger and fear mixing in his voice. Do you see this? Do you understand what you've done to me? I'm a dead man now. But the girl did not flinch. Instead, she looked at him with something strange in her eyes. Not coldness, not cruelty, but something close to sorrow. I told you, she whispered. You cannot let me go, because if you do, they will still come for you, and now that they have marked you, your only hope is me. Daniel fell silent, his anger drained away by the truth in her words. He wanted to deny it, to push her away, to undo everything. But deep inside, he knew it was too late. The galaxy had already chosen his path, and it was a path tied to her, bound by chains neither of them could break. As the ship limped out of the asteroid field, Daniel looked at her again. For the first time he realized something terrifying. She was not his slave, not his prisoner. She was the one holding him, and no matter how far he tried to run, she would never let him go. The ship drifted through. Deep space, damaged and weak. Daniel had shut down most systems to hide from sensors. Only the dim emergency lights glowed in the cabin, painting everything in shadows. He sat across from the alien girl, his hands clenched, his mind restless. The bounty message still haunted him. His face, her face, spread across the galaxy. Hunters, mercenaries, smugglers, on all of them would come. He wanted answers, and this time he would not wait. Tell me the truth, Daniel said, his voice low but sharp. Who are you? What are you? Why are they so afraid of you? The girl met his stare without fear. For a long moment she was silent, as if measuring his worth. Then slowly, she touched the chains around her wrists. These are not ordinary shackles, she said. They were made by my enemies to keep my power asleep, to keep me helpless, but power always remembers. Daniel leaned forward, his jaw tight. You've said that before, but I don't care about magic words. I need the truth. What did I really buy back there? Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. You did not buy a slave, she said quietly. You bought a key to a war older than you can imagine. Daniel's breath caught. A war? Between who? She turned her gaze to the stars outside. My people, and those who now control the black market. Her voice softened but carried weight. Long ago my people ruled a great empire, not with greed, but with knowledge and strength. We were guardians of balance, keepers of secrets, no. Other race dared to hold, but greed spreads faster than wisdom. The lords of the market rose from the shadows, feeding on fear and slavery. They captured me, not because I was weak, but because I was dangerous to them. They thought keeping me chained would keep my people broken, and for a time, they were right. Daniel felt a chill. You were a leader? The girl smiled faintly, a sad smile. Not a leader, she said, but something worse in their eyes. I am the last daughter of the throne, the only one who remembers the old ways. As long as I live, my people still have hope. That is why they branded me as a slave, to bury the truth beneath shame. Daniel's mind reeled. He had not just stumbled into a mistake. He had pulled a thread that connected to an empire, a rebellion, a war. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? He demanded. Her eyes darkened. Because trust is a rare thing, human, and because the more you know, the greater the danger becomes. Silence filled the ship. The truth hung between them, heavy and sharp. Daniel wanted to deny it, to believe she was lying. But he remembered the asteroid field, the way the rocks moved like soldiers obeying her will. No ordinary being could do that. Finally, he asked the question burning inside him. Why me? Why stay with me? You could have escaped on your own. Her gaze softened, and for the first time there was no steel in her voice, only something fragile. Because you touched my contract. Because the moment you freed me, my fate and yours became one. The hunters will not stop, not until I am destroyed. And you with me. You may not believe in destiny, human, but destiny believes in you. Daniel leaned back, his heart pounding. He hated the idea of fate, hated the idea that his life had been stolen by an accident, but deep inside he knew she was right. Even if he abandoned her now, the hunters would come for him. The bounty proved it. The girl lowered her voice, almost a whisper. I will not lie to you, Daniel. Staying with me means endless danger, endless fear. But if you stay, you will see the truth of the galaxy. You will see powers that others hide in the dark, and you will have a choice, to stand with me, or to fall with them. Her words shook him more than any battle could. He stared at her, searching for some trick, some hidden lie. But all he saw was honesty, raw and sharp. Before he could answer, the ship's scanner beeped, a signal, faint but clear. Daniel checked the screen. It was a transmission from a distant outpost, not a hunter, not a warship, but a resistance channel. The girl's eyes lit with recognition. My people, she whispered, her voice trembling. For the first time, they are still alive, still fighting. Daniel's chest tightened. He realized that whatever choice he made, he was no longer just one man. He had stepped into a war that stretched across the stars, and the girl sitting across from him was not just a slave. She was a queen in chains, a storm waiting to rise again. The signal blinked on the screen, waiting for him to answer. Daniel hesitated, his finger hovering over the button. If he accepted, there would be no turning back, no hiding, no peace, only war. He looked at her, at the faint glow of her skin, at the unbroken fire in her eyes, and he knew one thing for certain. The past had found him, and the future would never let him go. The resistance signal flickered on Daniel's screen, pulsing like a heartbeat. One touch could connect him to the alien girl's people, to her past, to her war. But one touch could also seal his fate, painting a target even brighter on his back. Daniel hesitated, his hand hovering above the button. Before he could decide, the girl reached out, her chained wrist brushing against his arm. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried a storm. Not yet, she whispered. If we answer too soon, they will find us before we are ready. Daniel frowned. Who will find us? The hunters? The market lords? Her gaze shifted to the stars beyond the viewport. Everyone, she said softly. Bounties travel faster than light. Every pirate, every smuggler, every starving wanderer will chase you now. We need to move, to hide, to survive long enough, to choose where to stand. Her words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. It wasn't just the hunters now. It was the whole galaxy. He cursed under his breath, checked the scanners, and steered the ship away from the outpost signal. The girl leaned back in her seat, her sharp eyes never leaving him. She was calm, but Daniel felt her gaze burning into his thoughts. It was as if she already knew he would never abandon her. For the next 2 days, they jumped from system to system. Asteroid belts, abandoned stations, forgotten moons. Anywhere they could, hide from patrols, Daniel kept the ship alive with scraps, patching broken wires and feeding the engines whatever fuel he could steal. The girl watched in silence, only speaking when danger was near. Her strange sense always warned him before. A trap once. She told him to change course seconds before a pirate ambush. Another time, she whispered, not this station. And hours later, he learned it had been destroyed in a bounty raid. Daniel could not understand how she knew, and the more she guided him, the more he felt he was no longer the one steering the ship. It was her. Always her. One night, as they drifted near a quiet moon, Daniel finally asked, "Why do you stay so close? Why do you never leave my side? The girl tilted her head, her glowing hair catching the dim light. I told you, she said softly. Because if you leave me, they will still kill you. Daniel shook his head, frustrated. That's not an answer, that's a warning. I want to know the truth. Why me? Why not escape alone? For a long moment she was silent. Then, for the first time, her expression softened into something almost fragile. You were the first to look at me and not see a slave, she whispered. Her voice carried pain but also something else. A warmth Daniel had never heard from her before. You didn't want chains around my wrists. You wanted them gone. No one else has ever done that. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at her differently then, not as a burden, not as a mistake, but as someone who had been broken by a cruel galaxy and still stood strong. He opened his mouth to speak, but the ship's alarm cut him off. The scanner flashed red. 3 bounty ships emerged from the void, their engines glowing like hungry eyes. This time, they did not attack at once. Instead, they surrounded Daniel's ship, blocking every escape path. A voice crackled over the comms, harsh and cold. Human vessel, surrender the asset. You will be rewarded if you live. Resist and you will die with her. Daniel cursed under his breath, gripping the controls. His ship was too weak for another fight. He glanced at the girl. She sat tall, her eyes glowing faintly. No fear in her face. You said they'd never stop, Daniel muttered. And you were right. The girl leaned closer, her chains clinking softly. Then don't run, she whispered. Fight. Daniel stared at her, stunned. With what? This ship has no weapons. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. You don't need weapons when you have me. Before Daniel could reply, she pressed her hands against the floor, whispering words he could not understand. The strange symbols. On her chains flared with light brighter than before. Suddenly the air inside the ship pulsed heavy and alive. Daniel's skin prickled, his hair rose. The very walls of the ship hummed with energy. Outside, the bounty ships began to shake. Their engines sputtered, their lights flickered. Daniel watched in shock as one ship spun out of control, crashing into another. The third tried to fire, but its cannons twisted, melting into useless slag. What did you do? Daniel gasped. The girl lifted her head, her eyes glowing like twin suns. I reminded them, she said softly, that chains can only hold me for so long. The last bounty ship fled, disappearing into the dark. Daniel's ship floated in. Silence, the wreckage of his enemies drifting all around. His heart pounded as he looked at her. He finally understood. She wasn't just running. She was reclaiming something piece by piece. As the glow faded from her eyes, the girl leaned back, exhausted but unbroken. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This is why they will never let me go, Daniel. Because every time I breathe free, the galaxy trembles. Daniel stared at her, torn between fear and awe. For the first time he realized he wasn't just keeping her alive, he was helping her rise again. And deep inside, he wondered if he could ever let her go, even if he tried. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched, endless and bright, but Daniel knew the truth. The galaxy was closing in on them, and with every step forward, the bond between them grew tighter, stronger, unbreakable. The black void of space stretched endless around Daniel's ship. For a moment, silence returned after the battle with the bounty hunters, but Daniel knew it would not last. They were running out of fuel, running out of time, and running out of places to hide. The girl sat across from him, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. She had closed her eyes, breathing slowly as if gathering strength. Daniel wanted to ask what she was planning, but before he could speak, the ship's console lit up red. A new signal filled the screen, stronger than anything before. Dozens of ships, maybe more, forming a net around them. The hunters had not given up. The lords of the black market had come themselves. Daniel's stomach sank. There was no escape. This time the enemy fleet moved like a wall, their weapons powered, their engines burning. A voice echoed through the comms, deep and cruel. Human vessel, surrender the asset. You cannot run. You cannot fight. Hand her over and your death will be quick." Daniel's fists clenched on the controls. He looked at the girl who was now watching the screen with calm, unblinking eyes. "They've brought an army," he said, his voice tight. "We can't win against that." Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "You're right," she said softly. "You can't win. But I can." Daniel froze. He wanted to argue, to tell her it was impossible, but something in her voice silenced him. Not pride, not arrogance, but certainty. The girl stood, her chains rattling as she moved to the center of the cabin. She placed her hands on the metal floor, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. The strange symbols along her shackles burned with light. Daniel felt the air shift, heavy, alive, filled with unseen power. The calm's voice returned, mocking. "Do you really think you can fight us, girl? You are broken, chained, forgotten. Your power is nothing but ashes." The girl lifted her head and her voice rang like thunder. "You fear me because you know the truth. You cannot kill what was born to rise again." The entire ship shuddered, not from enemy fire, but from her. A pulse of energy spread out from her body, invisible yet unstoppable. Outside, the Black Fleet trembled, engines flickered, shields cracked, weapons powered down one by one. The enemy ships tried to resist, but they were caught in her storm. Daniel shielded his eyes as the light grew brighter. He felt his skin tingle, his bones hum, as if the universe itself was answering her call. The girl's chains shook violently, the glowing symbols breaking, shattering like glass. With each crack, her presence grew stronger, Daniel realized with awe and fear. The shackles had not been holding her hands, they had been holding her soul. "Stop her!" The voice screamed through the comms. The fleet opened fire, hundreds of beams racing toward Daniel's ship. But before they could strike, the girl raised her arms. The beams froze mid-space, locked in place as if caught by invisible threads. Then, with a single movement, she sent them spinning back. The enemy ships exploded in waves of fire, one after another. Daniel stared in shock, unable to breathe. The girl stood tall, her eyes blazing like twin suns, her chains now shattered. On the floor, she was no slave, no prisoner. She was something far greater. The comms fell silent, the fleet broken and burning. Only a few ships remained, fleeing into the dark. The girl lowered her arms, her glow fading slightly. Her breathing was heavy, but her voice was steady. "It is done," she whispered. "The lords will not forget this, but they will fear me again." Daniel swallowed hard, still trembling. You destroyed them." "All of them." She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "No," she said softly. "I reminded them who I am." For the first time since meeting her, Daniel felt the weight of the truth. He hadn't rescued a victim. He hadn't freed a slave. He had unleashed a storm the galaxy had tried to bury. The girl stepped closer, her sharp eyes locking onto his. "You see now why I can never leave you," she said. "Because the moment you touched my fate, you became part of this war. And now, human, you are bound not just to me, but to what I must become." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, to tell her he never asked for this. But deep, inside, he knew it was true. He had seen her power, felt it, survived it, and no matter how far he ran, he could never escape her shadow. The wreckage of the black market fleet drifted outside. The stars burned quietly beyond. But Daniel knew peace was an illusion. The lords would return, and next time, they would bring more than ships. He looked at the girl again. Her silver blue, skin glowed softly now, her strength dimmed but not gone. She met his gaze and whispered, "This is only the beginning." The battlefield drifted in silence. Burning wrecks floated among the stars, the remains of the black market fleet. Daniel sat in the pilot's chair, his hands shaking on the controls. He had seen battles before, but nothing like this. One girl had destroyed an army. She stood near the viewport, her silver blue skin glowing faintly, her broken chains scattered on the floor. Her hair shimmered like strands of starlight. Her eyes burned with strength, but behind that fire, Daniel saw something else. Exhaustion, and a sadness too heavy to hide. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was louder than words. Finally, Daniel broke it, his voice rough. You could have killed me too. Back. There, the girl turned slowly, meeting his gaze. If I wanted you dead, human, she said softly, you would not be standing here. Daniel swallowed hard. That doesn't make me feel better, he muttered. But his words carried no anger, only fear mixed with awe. He looked at the shattered chains on the floor, glowing faintly before fading away. So you're free now, he said. Nothing binds you anymore. The girl's lips curved into a faint smile. You're wrong, she whispered. I am bound more than ever. Daniel frowned. To what? To your people? To your past? Her eyes softened, and for the first time there was warmth in her voice. To you, she said, almost like a secret. When you freed me, you tied yourself to my fate, and now, no matter what happens, I will never let you go. Daniel's chest tightened. He should have felt trapped, should have hated the thought of being chained to someone else's destiny, but instead a strange calm filled him. Somehow her words didn't sound like a curse. They sounded like a promise. The next hours passed quietly. Daniel repaired what he could, sealing the damaged hull, keeping the ship alive. The girl helped, in silence, her once-chained hands steady as she passed him tools. For the first time, she did not look like a captive. She looked like a partner. When the repairs were done, they sat together in the dim cabin staring at the stars. Daniel broke the silence, his voice low. What happens now? The lords will come again. The bounty will spread. We'll never be safe. The girl tilted her head, her eyes glowing faintly. There is no safety left for us, she admitted. But there is freedom. And freedom is worth more than safety. Daniel shook his head. You talk like you're not afraid of dying. Her gaze lingered on him, calm but sharp. I died. The day they put chains on me, she whispered. Everything after that is borrowed time. But with you, I live again. Her words struck deep, leaving Daniel speechless. He had thought of her as trouble, a burden, even a curse. But now, looking at her in the quiet of the stars, he realized the truth. She was more alive than anyone he had ever met. And somehow she had given that life back to him too. The ship's console beeped softly, breaking the moment. Another signal flashed across the screen, the same resistance channel from before. The girl leaned closer, her eyes shining. My people, she whispered. They are still waiting, still fighting. I cannot ignore them. Daniel hesitated, his hand hovering above the button. If we answer, there's no going back, he said. They'll know where we are. We'll be hunted worse than ever. The girl placed her hand gently on his. Her touch was warm, steady, unshakable. You are hunted already, she said softly, but together we can be more than prey. Together we can be the storm that hunts them. Daniel looked at her hand over his, at her glowing eyes. He felt the weight of every choice pressing down. He could walk away, try to hide, try to survive on his own. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He had no choice anymore. The galaxy had tied him to her the moment he freed her, and he didn't want to break free. He pressed the button. The resistance signal answered, filling the cabin with voices, static, then hope, then fire. They spoke in a language Daniel couldn't understand, but the girl's eyes shone with tears. For the first time since he met her, she looked almost human, fragile, grateful, alive. Hours later, after the call ended, Daniel sat in silence. The girl leaned against the viewport, staring at the stars. The war was not over, it was only beginning, but something had changed. He was no longer just running, he was moving forward. With her, he whispered under his breath, almost afraid to say it aloud. What am I becoming? The girl turned her head, her voice soft but unyielding. You are becoming part of something greater than yourself. You saved me, Daniel. But in truth, I saved you too. Her words echoed in the cabin. Daniel felt them settle in his chest, like a brand. Unshakable. Unbreakable. He looked at her one last time. and he knew with certainty what she had already promised. She would never let him go. Not in life, not in death, not in any corner of the galaxy. And though the galaxy burned, with danger ahead for the first time, Daniel did not feel alone. He felt bound, yes, but bound to something worth living for.